Welcome to our virtual Artist Walk and Talk. I'm Cindy Abbott, Executive Director of Sanchez Art Center. And on behalf of the Sanchez Art Center board and staff, I'd like to share how delighted we are to have you with us this afternoon and to extend our good wishes for health and harmony during this ongoing, very unusual and difficult time. The call for entry for the 2020 Left Coast Annual Jury Show opened in mid-October of 2019, and juror Carin Adams completed her task of viewing the selected 50 pieces of work that she pulled from over 950 submissions in early February. At that time, we had no idea what we were going to be facing, and we had every expectation that we'd be welcoming you at the end of the show to the work here in our galleries in Pacifica. But then, of course, everything changed. And we realized by the second week in March that we'd be needing to make a pretty significant shift in how we were going to present the show. So from everyone at SAC to all of the 2020 Left Coast artists, we share our great appreciation for Carin's generosity with her time as we reviewed how to move ahead, including her time last week when we had a smaller gathering of artists and Carin. I also want to personally thank our Sanchez Art Center program manager, Janet Barker, who coordinated with all of the artists in the show to receive their digital images of their art and artisan statements and install the art in our new virtual galleries. While we're unable to physically be together, we appreciate that everyone has taken the time to explore the galleries from the comfort of their own devices and to get to know the artists by joining us this afternoon. So a few of the logistics that I've shared, what we have up here is our Sanchez Art Center new virtual galleries website. And on the website from the upper right corner, these little bars here is how you can navigate the website if you haven't already. You can see a list here of all of the artists in the show, and do take some time at your leisure to explore each of these names of the artists who were selected for the show are hot linked, and you can also explore their website. We also have information about Sanchez Art Center and the 2020 Left Coast Annual Exhibition, and we welcome you to explore that. These are particularly difficult times for many, including those of us in the art world. And if you do have the ability, I'd be remiss to not share that there is the opportunity to donate to Sanchez Art Center. And if not to us, think about the other arts organizations in the community who have, like us, all been shut down and unable to bring people together for the great programming that we have in the Bay Area. I've noted that if on Zoom you want to pull up the chat box, bring your cursor down around the bottom of the screen. It's a little bit different if you're on an iPad, but otherwise look around for that and feel free to chat in the chat box. You can ask questions of our panelists or who are the artists. And so artists, stay tuned to the chat box as well so that you can respond to any questions directed your way. At this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our Sanchez Art Center Artistic Director, Jerry Ross Barish.
Hello.
Oh, Jerry, you're unmuted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to thank everyone for participating in this. I've been the artistic director for over 18 years as a volunteer, and we're very proud of what we have accomplished at the center over the years. We have made the Sanchez Art Center an artistic destination for the Bay Area and Northern California. And one of the reasons that we were able to do that is because of shows like this. I also would like to thank everybody that who participated. And I was very happy when we had our last week when we got to meet the artists in person. The show is spectacular. I'm very proud of this format. I'm technically handicapped, so this is a really difficult thing for me to do. But I should say a couple of things. First of all, a little about the center. We are invitational. The main gallery is an invitational gallery. We do not accept submissions. I am not in the business of rejecting people. So all those people who hope to show at the center, I hope that I will meet them or see the work over the years. I do see work in venues like this, but I do not take submissions. I do not want to be in the position of viewing slides and looking at websites and rejecting people. So please appreciate what we do. And when you get in a show here at the Art Center, it really is an invitational or really a juried situation. One of my jobs at the center is to get the jurors for two juried shows we have a year. One of them is called the 50-50 show. And I always try to find a prominent gallerist to jury that show. We could get 300 entries for that show, and we could have room for about 60 artists. The artist has to do 50 works in 50 days. Each work is 6 by 6 in size, and the work is presented in a grid, and it is one of the two most successful fundraisers we have at the center. We get 1,000 people come to our openings, and we sell almost $50,000 worth of art during that period of time the show is up, and that the artist gets 2/3 of the money, which is spectacular. Now this show, the Left Coast Annual, I always try to get the most prominent museum gatekeeper I possibly can. And I know I did well if we get over 900 entries. This might be a record for us. Carin's draw has been sensational. Working with her was wonderful. I sort of pinned her down like about a year ago when she was doing an art presentation at the Oakland Museum for Mildred Howard. I sort of cornered her and said, I really need your help. Would you like to be our juror for our Left Coast Annual? And she was so kind and she accepted our invitation. And obviously it was the right juror for the right time, considering the number of people that who submitted work. Last week, quite a few of the artists even said that the reason they submitted work to this show was because of Carin being the juror. And I want to thank Carin so much about this. And working with her and what she did with her time and effort has been sensational. Now at this time, I'd like to introduce Carin to our audience. I presume, is that the order, Cindy, that Carin will follow me?
I think that's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Carin, I can't see you, but I presume you're there.
I am, yes. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you, Cindy. And thank you so much for inviting me to do this. It's really been a great honor. And hello to everybody out there. I'm sorry that we can't really be together in a room with one another, looking at all the artwork in person, but I'm pretty grateful that we can do something like this now. I'm also a little technologically challenged, so I'm really grateful that Cindy and Janet figured all this out. So I was really pleased to be asked to do this. This was something that I heard about. I've been to the Sanchez Art Center. I've been at the Oakland Museum for a long time, and this is the first time you asked me, and I was really pleased. So thank you very much, Jerry. I was amazed at the incredible volume of really fantastic work that I had to look through. So it was really a pleasure, and it was really hard because there was so much to look through and so much really astounding work over a really broad spectrum of what's going on in contemporary art. So the Sanchez Art Center really should be proud of what they're able to, what you guys are able to do, and the people who want to show there. So I've been, like all of you, working from home since the middle of March. While I was during the show, I was also working on an exhibition that was supposed to open in April that won't now. We don't really know when we'll all be back convening in person. The museum's hoping, just like everybody else, that we'll be back open to the public as soon as it's safe. And so now in this interim period, I'm just happy to be able to be among a really devoted art community such as yourselves. I know that there were questions about how I went through all of this. You know, what was I thinking before I started making selections? And you know, usually when I jury a show, I'm thinking about it just as an opportunity to know, like, get to know artists who maybe I wasn't aware of before. And certainly there were lots of people who are in this, who submitted their work, whose work I was familiar with, but there's a lot of you who I wasn't familiar with. And that's usually my main motivator for wanting to do a project like this. And I always start out not thinking that there's going to be any thematic connection, but that I'm doing the best if I can look for a diversity of work. And so that was really what I set out to do. And I think really I should turn it over to the artists. And I think, Cindy, you had an order that you wanted to go in, right?
Yes, we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order, with Martin Webb being our first artist to speak.
Yeah, hi everybody. Am I on now?
We hear you. Welcome.
Yeah, okay, right. Well, good afternoon everybody, and thanks for being here, and thanks for Sanchez for hosting this, and I really appreciate the show must go on attitude that you've shown in getting all this online and doing the Zoom presentations, etc. So this is great. I'll talk briefly about this painting. It's a large painting. It's 4 feet by 6 feet. So almost monochromatic. I really wanted to play with a very dense field of color. I was trying to sort of capture how I felt about a particular place that I'd visited some years ago. And most of the work I do is about that. It's about trying to capture a feeling of a place, often a remembered place. And it's sometimes a feeling that might be a little nebulous. I'm not quite sure if I even understand what it is, but I'm painting to try and get a feel for that and communicate something about that. This particular piece, I've been working on boats for a while. I've had a design project that I was doing that got me drawing a lot of pictures of boats, and I realized that boats were a kind of a great abstract image, just because they're an interesting shape to put into landscapes. A sort of an upturned boat can look like a hill or a mountain. So I kind of, the first initial appeal of it was just playing around with the abstract shapes, but then I started to relate to the sort of universal symbolism of boats and what they mean in universally across cultures around the world, and they're a very timeless image. And this particular painting was based on the memory of visiting a friend in New Zealand several years ago. And at the time he was living in this sort of modernist little cabin that was kind of falling apart actually, but it was right on this beach, surrounded by temperate rainforest that comes right down to the water's edge. And when I say a beach, this is like a 5-mile long beach that's almost entirely deserted all of the time. And there was just something about the place, the sort of timeless, slow pace of things there, and the lush, natural setting of it. And there was this kind of like slightly sort of melancholy, desolate beauty about it too that I was trying to capture in this painting. And that's pretty much all I can tell you about it. I was just trying to capture a memory of how I felt about that place and get it into an image.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up, we'll be hearing from Paula Valenz.
Oh, hi. Thank you for being here. My name is Paula Valenzuela. I live in Oakland, and I'm originally from Chile, so I have lived here for the past 7 years. This piece is titled Monkey Mind. It's a 16 by 16 panel. It's made with collage and mixed media. Here I was building by layers. I usually do, this probably has like 10 layers. I add and then I remove with different materials, and I like to leave like a history of the process. And this one has a cold wax finish at the end. This was done last year as part of a series that I was interested in exploring the relationship of the consciousness and the mind. This was inspired, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's last year, so I did a lot of works really thinking about this, what happens, how in terms of both when the mind starts to disappear in a way. And also this monkey mind also to me represents like our actual state of the mind, like going back to the future and then to the past, and how difficult it is to be present. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am going to unmute the microphone of Nina.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm very, very happy to be part of this. So my work it's all done in ink. A lot of people think there's watercolor involved, but there's not. It's all different kinds of ink. Some are acrylic, some are just straight ink. I do have a fascination for biomorphic shapes and veils of color and patterns, and that might be because I'm also a designer. I have had my own company for 26 years, and I retired 5 years ago and have gone back to the fine arts, which I'm very happy about. My process is shaping moving water to create the shape before I actually start applying the inks. And the interaction of the different inks that I use create like this chemical reaction. Some inks do not care for other inks. Some float on top, some go straight to the bottom. There's all these different chemical things that happen, which I just love because it's very unpredictable. My work is extremely intuitive. I have no idea how this is gonna end up or what I'm gonna do until I actually do it. I'm pretty much, I feel like I'm kind of watching the ink. I mean, some things take weeks to dry, other things dry immediately. As I'm sure a lot of you know, ink can dry extremely quickly. For example, as opposed to watercolor, which you can move around a little bit more. There's a commitment with the way you work with ink that I kind of like, because you have to be a little bit cautious. So even though you're taking risk, you have to be careful not to put too much down too quickly, because you can't take it back. So unlike a canvas that you can, basically just paint it white and start over. You can't do that with ink. So, my process is very intuitive, and I just have a fascination for veils of color, and I love color. I love anything that's delicate, and this is basically who I am. So that's it. That's all I have to say. Oh, and I'm from Monterey, Carmel Valley area in California.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Myrna is not here today. This is the work of Myrna Tatar. So we're now going to turn the microphone over to Jennifer Song.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Great. Hi. So my name is Jennifer Song. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, but I currently live in Oakland, California. I identify as a conceptual artist and enjoy using mixed media, but my favorite medium is photography. I often use a large format 4x5 view camera. So this is a similar camera to what Ansel Adams used to use. It has bellows and a black cloth you place over your head. So I shoot film, I process my film, and since the closure of most color darkrooms, I now scan my film, edit in Photoshop, and print inkjet archival prints. So historically, most of my artwork has been feminist performance artwork, which I've used photography to document. Although this particular series of photographs is a much more personal and cathartic work. This photo comes from my series called La Pieta, which is a poetic response to my struggle with addiction. This particular image is a symbol of my health and recovery. It's a metaphor for the phrase, one day at a time. So during active addiction, many addicts dangerously isolate themselves. Addicts often lose grasp of reality while they're isolated, and their inner worlds become distorted. Intervention or treatment is usually needed to prevent addicts from getting hurt or killed during active addiction. So my addiction has greatly affected my relationship with my family. I'm currently healthy, I've received treatment, and I work a 12-step program. Addiction is also a taboo topic for many, which is incredibly problematic. There are over 21 million addicts in the United States of America, which is a larger number of people than those who suffer from every cancer combined. So addicts need to find support in order to survive. Perhaps by sharing my struggle, I can help an addict who still struggles. And I wanted to leave one resonating thought with everyone. This is a particularly trying and isolating time in the world. Reach out to those who you think may struggle with addiction. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's a great message to share as we're able to come together in ways that we didn't think about possible. So Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to unmute and see the work of James Sheffick.
Hello, James Shafiq here. I live in Oakland. What you're looking at is what looks like a vintage advertising sign that would be out in front of a paint supply store, but I built this from scratch, so everything's brand new. The rust is paint. It's all fake. I have a series of 6 of these signs where I reimagine just things in our world with a different worldview. The first piece I did was First Strike Motel, just a funny sign that kind of reflects where we're at today with our posturing in the world. But this is a fun one that kind of, I made the story that this is how Jackson Pollock came up with the idea to throw paint, is that his parents actually had a paint supply store, which is all fantasy and false and fake, which I do a lot with my artwork. I have a lot of very normal, everyday objects that I make, and I just put them together in such a way that it comments on where we are as a person, as a world. I usually point out the absurdities in life through my work. It may look like it's found work or it's assemblage, but I do build everything from scratch and give the viewer something recognizable to process, and then hopefully shift through the layers and get down to some of the meaning below just the beauty I make. I think that's about all I have. Thank you, Cindy and Carin and Jerry. It's always a pleasure to show at Sanchez.
I just realized that there is a question that I failed to answer so far, and Kurt Keist was asking if I could make a comment after each artist is finished about why I chose their work, you know, with this last piece, I was just really taken by the playful narrative and the way the work looks like a vintage find, but was clearly constructed. So that was why I chose that piece.
Okay. Okay, we'll bring up Bridget's work.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Bridget, 6 Hour. I'm out of Seattle, Washington, and I work as a marine electrician on fishing boats. So this piece it's acrylic on wood, and it's just a pipe vise that I saw in the shipyard. So when I'm at work, I sneak pictures of stuff that I see that I think is really interesting on my camera, and then or my phone, and then I kind of play around with it a little and paint it. So I'm a self-taught artist, so I don't exactly have the language to talk about art like you guys are used to, but let's see. A lot of the people that I work with recognize the objects that I paint, and they also feel like they have kind of an emotional connection to these things, kind of like the guy you see every day at a coffee shop or something. They're characters that we see every day, and I don't know, we just kind of don't pay attention to them much or appreciate the beauty or how much we depend on them. But so when people see my paintings, a lot of them, I don't know, they understand the connection that I have to these inanimate objects. I think that's it.
Well, I think that's what I liked about this painting a lot. This is Carin again. You know, that you were taking the time to render something that was probably an everyday object for you, but something that I wasn't familiar with. I found that pretty intriguing. So, yeah. Worked for me.
I have unmuted our next artist here, Stanislav. Hello, are you there, Stanislav? You're unmuted. Can you hear us, Stanislav? Okay, we will move on and see if we can circle back to then. You're seeing the work there. So I am going to bring up Mark Seeley.
Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm a Berkeley, California artist, and I draw and paint in a variety of media. This work is oil on panel. I use brushes, of course. I use squeegees, sometimes junk mail, anything flat, or my gloved hand sometimes. I do a lot of layering and editing, and I usually have more of a chaotic beginning, and I try to steer it into greater simplicity. I really like to paint plein air, and usually my work is, 3 by 4 feet would be the small end. So it's sometimes a struggle, but I do a fair amount of the landscape work in the studio as well, you know, especially the sky. And I try to instill a sense of motion or an emotional backbone to the work. I try to avoid simply straightforward representation or imagery that's too static. I think partly why I do that is, you know, I'm keenly aware of my own limitations as a painter. So I try to kind of edit my way past my abilities in some sense. Sometimes unexpected marks or chance can help keep a work from being overworked or too static, and hence my layering as well. I'll often edit out some moments that either aren't successful or in the wrong place or what have you. I think one of the reasons I really like to be on-site plein air is, you know, intuitively we know, you know, the land keeps going beyond the borders, but it really helps to see it and to feel it. And I feel like that helps create a sense of depth. And there's probably more subtlety in the work than you can see on the screen, but it's kind of it for this. And just another thank you to everybody who put the show together. It's really nice in trying times to have some art presented this way. So thank you.
Yeah, this painting really draws you in, and I guess I think of it as being so exceptional because I can project myself into it in a way. It's a really emotional landscape, and it feels cinematic and alive all at the same time. I think that's why I chose it. Somebody was asking in the chat, Mark, for you to talk a little bit about the red in this painting. And I think you did a little bit. You alluded to that kind of mark making already, but
yeah,
a bit more about that.
Sure, thanks for the question. I wish I had some great profound response, but sometimes the color is just a device. I'm not a colorist, so again, I try to move beyond my limitations with tips and tricks here. You know, in this case, that red really carried the green in the painting, and so it wasn't so overwhelming. There's maybe more color than you can gather in just the screen there, but and through some of the layering, there's some complementary and other colors in there, but the red gives it kind of sort of shocks you out of the representational aspect of it, but it gives you something different and something other with that complement. And in some more recent work, I've used, you know, not only red, but quite different colors. Maybe a blue in the sky that's not intuitive or local color, but you know, it's sort of helping me realize my limitations in color and not to rely solely on random, you know, colors that don't belong, but I think making them in some way belong is a way I can make the painting more than just what I have the ability to paint. So I hope that makes some sense.
Yes, thank you.
We're going to try to go back and see if Stanislav was able to figure out his microphone. Are you there? Oh, okay. We will try again. And in the meantime, we'll move forward here in the gallery to Michael Schneid.
Hi, my name is Michael Schneid. I'm from Pacifica, California, where I was. That's where I worked in. I just recently moved to Medford, Oregon. I'm a photographer. I do all kinds of photography from film to digital, but this series I did in digital. I'm interested in the road, El Camino Real, and how it's changing through time. I always drive on this road like I'm going to a bookstore or a photography store or some small little unusual store. They're always going down El Camino Real. A lot of people find it annoying, but I find it quite fascinating because it's such a clash of different cultures and different buildings. And I noticed that was rapidly disappearing. And I like to take pictures of buildings in color, kind of an Americana scene. And so I started documenting these buildings that are disappearing. Because I noticed that El Camino Real is becoming rather gentrified, becoming homogenous. We're going to lose all these wonderful little stores and these ethnic enclaves, and losing the character of the street. And I wanted to document that before it was gone completely. And I've been doing this for around 3 years now, and a lot of the stores are gone. And I'll keep coming back as it changes, and document these changes. And that's about it. Thanks.
This is Carin. I'm also interested in the way that things change, and looking back at them, like having things photographed actually makes you see things that maybe you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. And I really loved the way this series told a story that maybe I had seen but not paid attention to. So I think they're really beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back one more time and see if Stanislav was able to get his microphone to work. And if not, Carin, maybe you can also say a few words about it.
Yeah, there was really nothing in the submissions that was like this work, and I really appreciated the way this artist wasn't just that he was considering the frame, that the quality of the drawing was really different than anything else that was submitted. It's very mysterious, and it's also something I think that would probably benefit from being able to see it in person, because it's got such like a delicate line quality. But yeah, I was hoping to hear more from the artist about it.
Well, we'll keep hoping, but thank you for that. We're going to move here now to Margot is unable to be on the call today. This is a ceramic piece. Here we are with Francesca.
Hi, hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, Cindy, thanks. My name is Francesca Severia. I'm located in Berkeley, California, and I was born and raised in San Francisco, so I'm pretty much close to home. This is an encaustic painting, 40 inches by 40 inches. And encaustic, sometimes people confuse encaustic with cold wax, and it's completely different. Encaustic is a mixture of Damar resin, raw pigment, and beeswax, and it's melted to a temperature of about 180 to 200 degrees. And then I paint with this hot liquid on a rigid absorbent surface. So it's on a wood panel. And every time you torch, you have paint, you have to torch, because encaustic means to burn in. If I didn't torch, it would just chip off. So this painting could have between 5 to 10 layers. And what I love about encaustic, I've been doing it for 10 years now, is the layering and the intensity of color that I can get. And I love color. I love bold, abstract paintings. And it can sometimes be hard to get very defined shapes with the encaustic, because when you're torching, it will move around. But as you can see in this, I was also playing with these fine lines done by crayons and other methods. So I was happy with that. And this large piece came out of working on smaller panels where I was playing with rhythm, shapes, and a new palette. And after about, 6 small paintings, I just jump into the larger one, and it's like I've done my stretches, and then I'm ready to go for the big one. So that's how this came to be. And I titled my paintings after the work. And so I just looked at this and I just said, oh, Little Italy. And I don't know if that was because of my background, my heritage, or what, but that's what I named it. Maybe you can see why. So that's about it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful painting. And I know that it must have all kinds of nuances that aren't visible on the screen. You know, when I was looking at slides, I just had your materials list to go by and an image. So this is definitely an artwork that I figured would be important to see in person, because the photograph of it hints a little bit at the depth of surface, but otherwise it's mysterious. I just responded to the intensity of color and the way that the forms are really expressive and seem to be moving.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Russell. I live and work here in Pacifica. I actually have a studio at Sanchez Art Center. My painting, an odd name, Umeå, is actually, it's a city way in the north of Sweden, but I didn't name it, kind of like Margot just said. I name my work usually after I've done it. It usually starts out with a drawing that I charcoal on really, really heavy gesso, and then I work in acrylic. And I love working with any kind of paint, but acrylic has been the thing I worked with for the past, I suppose, about 40 years. And I love color. So I think that's it.
Well, that's what I liked about this painting too. And again, I think I know that I'm missing something in that your work seems to have an object quality to it that I'm sure would be wonderful to see in person. But I did love the colors. Yeah.
Margaret, please.
Hello, yes. Thank you everyone for coming and for the ability and the chance to participate. Margaret Realika, and actually I'm in Honolulu, Hawaii based now, but I was in the Bay Area for 30 years, Oakland. Have been doing sculpture that are mini installations, combining the old mechanical with the new mechanical, and at the same time putting mechanical and organic together. So always there's, and I haven't only a rough idea when I first start, because a lot of it's junk that I've collected, the photographs that I've collected. And at the same time, once I start, I play with them and then I start editing and put the piece together with old and new mechanical and organic. I'm addicted. I've been living in the Bay Area, was totally attracted to all the mechanical and all the high-tech stuff. And so I was finding all these old car engines burnt out in Oakland and photographing them and then combining them with images. Like through this, you can see landscape coming through. So there's the mechanical of an old engine that's burnt out, and at the same time, the organic. The porcelain is organic with found new machine parts that are new, not old. So it's old and new and mechanical and organic. I have a thing about film. I just love film, the movement of film. And it is actually, in a way, my inspiration, because that's where seeing layers of film in films started getting me going with the idea of using transparencies, different angles, different views. That was 3mm and a digital, and then getting them into perspective of movement, scenes, depth, all sorts of things. And again, combining the organic and the mechanical. I play with the stuff and then edit it and then put it all together. But it is Bay Area and living with all those machines and tech, burnt out engines, photographs, layered photographs. Thank you.
This is, it's such a mysterious object, really. I liked not knowing if how it moved, if it moved. I like that suggestion that it's that maybe it's a machine for a purpose that I'll never be able to figure out, and the images, the way that they're layered inside the resin is it's hard to know what I'm looking at, but I can tell that it's lovely.
I'm very much a mixed media sculpture artist, and they're suspended in space. So I have what's happening below, connecting with what's happening, on the surface at the top. Was a part of death and part of life, underneath and beyond.
And we do have a question on if this is a freestanding piece or a wall hanging.
No, it's a freestanding acrylic piece, and the photographs are, installed into the acrylic piece. And then at the same time, they're all found. I collect junk, nuts and bolts and screws and all sorts of things. And those are inserted into the piece. So it becomes the top installation becomes a part and a continuation of the story of the bottom, the 2D below and the 3D above. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Carin.
Oh, no, you didn't.
But thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Pello, and I'm up in Ashland, Oregon, by way of Oakland, though. And this piece is titled Stinson Beach. What I do is I start out by going on a foraging excursion. And so this one, I went obviously out to Stinson Beach and collected all these little shells and feathers and seaweeds. And there's these kind of sailboat kind of jellyfish. And I gather all those materials and I take them back to my studio. And I make them into an arrangement like this. I really like to play with space and really build something up so it's very three-dimensional. And then I shoot it typically with a prime lens in also very, very shallow depth of field. So it really has kind of a, these objects aren't very big, but it still has like a lot of layers and depth to it. And my aim really is just to capture the feeling of like being out in that wild space and just kind of being immersed in that environment. And then I take it and edit it afterwards, and I mirror it across the median. And I really think that the mirroring process kind of gives it almost a lifelike quality, like it's almost staring back at you. This one's got kind of a very alien bug-like quality to it that I find really interesting.
Yeah, they all have a kind of a fantasy organism feeling to them.
Yeah.
And I loved the way that this series, it presents itself as fantastical, but then you can see bits of sand on the elements that you collected, and everything feels very much like of the earth, but then in this fantastical creature kind of construction, and in the sort of white space that that I associate with a gallery or even just the unconscious. And I liked the play of all that, be able to imagine what something smelled like, but feel like it was also a creature that I'd never seen in my life.
Yeah, exactly. They all feel very, to me, I don't know, like something that might talk to you in one of your dreams.
Yeah, I have that feeling too. They transport you. actually so much of the show has works that in different ways like move me to either enter into them or imagine another world where they might exist. And I love that about this work. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Indeed. Yes, hello.
Hi, thank you for including my work in the exhibit.
Sure.
My name is Jonathan Palmer, and I live in Fort Bragg, California. This painting was created using oils layered on top of acrylic spray paint. In my process, I like to reflect kind of the history of the painting as it develops. And the process often begins really without a concrete idea of content and develops out of more, I guess, formal compositional choices. So my approach also kind of starts off more visceral, I guess. I often appropriate elements of art history within my work. And I'm very inspired by my interests in ecology, philosophy, psychology, art history, printmaking, and contemporary culture.
Yeah, this painting made me feel like you were inviting me into your process somehow. Like it seems like there's a mysterious narrative in it that I can't quite figure out, and I liked that about it.
Thank you.
Move here to James Ong.
Oh, hello everyone.
Hi.
Hi. This one is called Memories of a Weaver, #1. And it's acrylic on canvas, 36 by 24. And I'm from Saratoga, California. And I'm an artist and a designer. And the process I'm using for this painting is I apply layers of paint with a painting knife, and then I go in there with a metal sculpting tool that has a point. So I'm scratching lines into the painting so it brings out the depth of the previous layers coming through. So there's like a three-dimensional effect when you look at this painting. And what this painting is about is, well, as we get older, our past starts to fade. We remember certain events while forgetting others. And we often live with our memories, whether they're real or imaginary, while forgetting that it's in the present that we are most alive. And I was inspired by the textile arts. I'm really interested in like weaving and Zen Buddhism, impermanence, and memory. And well, that's basically all I have on this painting. And thank you very much for letting me be in the show.
Oh, sure. And I love the kind of the mark making that unfortunately is flattened by the photograph. I felt like there was probably an objectness that I would really love in person, but yeah, I love the way that that I can kind of see your hand in this piece. So that's why I chose it.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jan Nodden. I am an artist living in Oakland. I'm actually born and raised in the East Bay. And I have a background in art with printmaking and photography. And so, but I've also been a practicing attorney for the last 20 years. So I basically now want to paint full time and have been doing that pretty much for the last few years. I've gone back to the whole idea of what I love about printmaking, which is, you know, flattened spaces, large concentration of shapes. I was taken by what the previous artist, James Ong, had talked about, memories, because I had been carrying around my some photographs, 3x3 photographs from the 50s and 60s from when I was a child. And they've always been iconic. And, you know, I also have a history in psychology. So part of this painting, My Parents' Habits, is actually taken from a series that I did of these 3x3 photographs. It's a small painting. I didn't want to go too large because I kind of like the intimacy of the 3x3, but I wanted to expand on it a bit so that I could actually explore some of the things. And what I found really about this one, just, you know, a feeling of melancholy, but also of humor, you know, my parents and, you know, just what the kind of the objects around them and the things they enjoyed to do, and just the kind of the timeless, the history of them. And that's basically where I was going with this painting. It's acrylic. I like acrylic. I work predominantly in acrylic. I do landscapes and urbanscapes, but I do enjoy doing figurative work. And this is part of that, my more figurative pieces. I like to simplify shapes. I like the fluidity of, you know, more looseness. I don't like to take my paintings to the ultimate end. I like to leave kind of an undone feeling, kind of a rawness, and that's kind of where this one comes in for me. So you can still see some of my line work from the, you know, from the drawing underneath. And anyway, it's kind of enigmatic. I enjoy this one. It's one of my favorite ones, and I'm glad that. Thank you very much for accepting me. I really appreciate it. It's nice to acknowledge.
I love this painting, like for a lot of the reasons that you were describing. It's I like that it has an intimacy to it, and it's not the way that you chose to leave some things in or not completely detail out others. Gives it kind of a emotional intimacy, I think, that I like.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it.
Hi, Cindy. Hi, Karen, everyone. My name is Christina Nobleman. I live in St. Helena in Napa Valley, California. My work focuses primarily on fiber and textiles, but through a variety of different mediums like sculpture, stitch, fabric manipulation, and most recently printmaking. This piece is an extension of my work in contemporary quilt making. It's patchwork linen that has been deconstructed. So thread by thread, I pull out the warp weft structure, leaving basically half of the remaining textile. This exploration of deconstruction is an important line of inquiry for me. It's a process of meditation, really, exploring what is truly essential to maintain structure, living, being, and what happens in this process of unraveling. Can we survive being vulnerable, really? So it turns into, for me, a process of meditation on my own experience through the making as well. The spiral references not only my own sacred kind of internal journey, but also gets back to those quilt making roots with the log cabin quilt block, which is a traditional quilt block design. Yeah, so I plan to continue exploring the process of deconstruction in more sculptural works and more in the printmaking work that I'm just starting to do, which is very exciting. So thank you so much.
I love the meditative quality of this and the way that you went back and used gold on the fibers.
Yes. Yeah, after I deconstructed, I painted the remaining fiber with gold pigment, which in a way for me really honored the time that it took to make the piece. And I just liked, it's really referencing that otherworldly quality of all the places that my mind went, and kind of making that a sacred part of the process in the making.
And for those people who haven't worked with fiber, to be able to remove so much of the structure of the fabric without actually completely tearing it apart is really labor intensive. Because this is an intimate work, but it must have been incredibly time consuming.
You know, it's funny that I really enjoy that process, and it was something that just came to me very spontaneously. I found myself repeatedly taking fabric apart in my studio, so it was a very organic thing, and I guess it was just something that was needing to be done.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gayle Morrison. I'm a printmaker. I mostly do etchings, excuse me, and I live in Richmond. This bridge is in a park, Wildcat Creek Park, or rather Wildcat Creek and Alvarado Park in Richmond. There's a lot of WPA stonework in that park, including this bridge. Well, the bridge, maybe not the wall. Looks like a place that I think you would find trolls. I used to live just a couple of blocks away, and some of us used to gather at a picnic table from time to time, discuss the fate of the world, and that's where I took the picture. I cropped the original photo and converted it to black and white and modified it in various ways. The water, the high water, and the twigs, the whites, are the things that you only see in the winter. And then I created a transparency from the image. I have an exposure frame that I made from a piece of plywood, a piece of foam rubber, a piece of glass, and some clamps. And I put the transparency over the photopolymer plate, clamp it in the frame, and show it to the sun for 45 seconds. Then I take out the transparency and cover the plate with an aquatint screen, which brings out the grays, and expose it again. And I etch the plate just by gently washing it with water. The areas of the plate that saw the sun are hardened by the sunlight and become the whites. The rest washes away and becomes the blacks and the grays. I really like it that the plate is created using just sunlight and water instead of acid. And then after putting it back in the sun for 20 minutes or so to harden, it's ready to wipe and ink just like any other etching plate.
Well, I love it. I think it's really beautiful.
Hello, hi. I'm Pamela Mooney. I live in San Francisco. I'm from the Los Angeles area, and I painted this painting. I will worry about tomorrow when it comes. I was just working with, trying to work with scale. This is larger than life, which I think it allowed me to kind of just play around with the forms. I was just kind of looking at trying to use line and to outline some of the shapes, and just try and use kind of some awkward colors just to make the painting kind of like make your eye move around the painting. And also just using body language to reinforce the feeling of the painting. And yeah, so yeah, that's it.
I like the intensity of her expression. and the scale of the work with such a with a gaze like that. I think that's why I chose it.
Thank you.
Hi. Wow, it's weird to talk to really just myself in my living room, but all of you.
Yeah.
Experience. But my name is Patricia Ludovici. I am an Oakland-based artist. I grew up in Philadelphia, but I've been living in Oakland, I don't know, 20 years, something like that at this point, on and off. I guess I would consider myself a sculptor, but I primarily work with found objects and glass. My training is in glass from a very young age, and I continue to work with it now. And it's hard to see from this picture because this piece has a lot of parts and components in it. But if you guys can sort of look dead on straight in the middle of that mattress, there's sort of like a cluster of fingers and nipples all made out of flesh-colored glass with latex stains that I stitched onto the mattress. But this was a piece of work in a much larger body of work where I was sort of investigating, I guess, effective ugliness and our relationship to everyday objects, and especially like the emotional or even sexual lives of these objects that we encounter from birth till death, and kind of deconstructing them and reconstructing them in secondary or third materials to kind of give us this, maybe an unease with them, but also an attraction that's almost like a mouthfeel, like something very visceral that you can't quite place, like a troll doll. You know, you want to look at it and then you want to look away and then you want to look again and you want to look away. But yeah, that's my work. I'm still working in this body currently, especially now that we're all homebound. I've been spending a lot of time with home-based objects every day and thinking about our sort of relationships with them and our emotional relationships with them, and then how we sexualize certain objects that we tend to live with, whether male, female, or what have you, and navigating those spaces while using a contemporary craft material such as glass that has had a very complex history. So that's me.
And I thought it was important to include something that in the show that was sculpture that felt almost installation-like. I mean, it's coming off, the whole piece is coming off the wall, it takes on the floor. I loved the way that you were mixing materials and using those fleshy bits almost.
I love those fleshy bits.
Fleshy bits, like interrupting something that I feel like I know what it feels like, the surface of that mattress, and the yuckiness of the foam that's coming out. The way that we're really accustomed to seeing decorative elements on objects that are there to be pleasing, but are also really ugly. And these are so fleshy and visceral. Anyway,
that's very cool. And thank you again. And thank you. That was very rad of you to say. And thank you everybody for being here, by the way. This is very cool.
Yeah. That I can't see it in person. I'm sure that I would want to touch it, even though I'm not supposed to.
Well, I think if I ever get a chance to show one of these in person, I'm going to ask people to touch it. That might just be part of something next. But yeah, yeah.
There is a question about what's on the floor in front of it.
Aha. So there's actually a couple of things going on. One of the things is, in this installation, I had the opportunity. So I've tried to show this one other time, and I had an opportunity to paint the wall, which I should also point out, which is I made a stencil of the mattress, and then I painted it. I painted the wall with the mattress pattern. And then what I was trying to do was deconstruct a bedroom by lifting it up off the ground. So if you look down at something, I was thinking about, what does it do to the intimacy of something if we pull it up? You know, we pull our heads up and we look at it head on. So I took pieces of plywood flooring and slotted them together underneath the mattress. And then I got a bunch of tin cans, like soda cans, and wrappers, and I spray painted them flesh colored. And then I made more latex spills. So technically what you're looking at is slotted floor put together with fleshy tin cans and wrappers with latex spills coming out of them. And I'm sorry, that's a lot.
Yeah, I love it.
Hi, my name is Ashley Lohr, and I live on a little island in Alaska. I like to introduce myself as a color artist with focus in painting. This painting, Rippling Rays, I completed in June 2019, and is a result of me letting go of structure and system of themes that was leading my work through grad school at MICA. My medium is interior paint, which extends from grad school. And for my thesis show back in grad school in 2015, True Value actually sponsored my show by providing all the interior paints I needed. So I actually have over 84 quarts of interior paint, which helps me continue to focus my painting or focus my concentration in color. My composition displays hints of form, depth, and place. Motherhood has a strong influence in my work since there are many studio moments when my kids are in my lap, since my husband as a fisherman is gone chunks of the year. And as a mother, I find it important to add a sense of play with abstraction and a curious visual experience while viewing my paintings, and the idea of searching for symmetry. So I'm kind of playing with the idea of asymmetry and symmetry, looking for balance, always looking for balance in my life with my full-time job and motherhood, and keeping it all kind of going. So that's what my work is about, mostly color and then finding balance.
Well, I loved the jewel-like quality of this, or it seemed like something you'd see through a prism, and I just thought it was beautiful. And I hear you about balancing life with work and being a mom.
Yep.
Next, just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric is unable to join us today, so we'll move on to our next piece.
Hi, I'm Ruth Lance. I am in Portland, Oregon. This is a painting with watercolor pencils, spray paint, and acrylic paint. I think about the intersection of painting, landscape, and digital technology. So this particular painting is from a series where I was looking at the Oregon Trail video game from the 80s and using the landscapes from that particular video game, which is the more sort of like washy linear part in the back comes from that game, and then combining those with sort of the aesthetics of both analog and digital sort of glitching. And then when I paint it, I have limited my palette to 4 colors. So I only use essentially CMYK, which is what printers use. So I'm thinking about both printmaking, but also the ways that printers lay down ink. So I paint in layers of color, so everything is glazed, and then in order to make different colors, I layer on another color through optical mixing. And the surface itself is, by the end when I'm done, is very, very smooth. So everything is sort of condensed into one very, very smooth, flawless surface. So it echoes a screen by the time that I'm done, to sort of push that technological tension further. Yeah, and I'm going to end there.
Well, I guess I liked that this piece seemed to merge that idea of a sort of digital glitch and then something a lot more organic that happens when you have a sunspot or see things out of the corner of your eye. They just seem like really like psychological landscapes in a way that I think is really intriguing.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Goran Kanyewood. I live in Livermore, and I have been making what I think of as sculpture by mostly folding sheet material, paper, sometimes sheet metal or metal mesh, for about 15 years now. Most of my work is based on just a square grid of folds, pleats, and the fact that the tension created by these folds and their intersections makes the sheet curve into a third dimension. So I've made no folds but straight line folds for this piece, even though it doesn't look like that would be possible. All the curvature shows up because of the tension in the paper. And this piece is quite three-dimensional as my work goes. It's mounted on a wall right now, but without any obvious hardware. And it comes off quite a bit, about 6 inches. I've been making these for about 15 years, and there's more and more patterns that I have to explore. And I've done a lot of these as 50-50 shows, participated there several times. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I just think this is an incredibly beautiful form. I mean, I'm intrigued by the mystery of how you might have made it, but that doesn't it doesn't outweigh just that I think it's a beautiful sculpture. So
thank you.
And also, I should say, someone was asking if I could go back and talk about any of the work that I missed in the beginning. And yes, we can, when we have time, we'll try to make time to do that. We can. I think I missed about 5. But.
In Cameron Park, and about a year ago, I was in Cuba. And my impression of Cuba, it's an area of very strong social contrasts, but it's also trying to balance poverty and decay of an area that's suffering from embargoes for the last 20 years, and comfort and peace. And this is a picture of 4 young men, about 10 o'clock at night, playing dominoes under a streetlight. And to me, this really captures the mood and the feeling of the country, because here you have these gentlemen taking advantage of the light because they don't have electricity at night generally. And you've got a woman walking along a mostly unlit street, perfectly at ease. And this picture just is a simple watercolor, but it really captures the mood of Cuba. And that's pretty much what I have to say about this one.
I just like the way that you captured a moment that, and in all of the sort of washy imprecision of the watercolor, but just it adds to that like sort of capturing of an ephemeral moment.
It does, and I think the burnt sienna, which this is painted in, just you know, you could see this picture blossoming into color when some of the restrictions on the society you know, disappear, but they seem to be very happy and at ease with their situation. So it's a real conflict that I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Lisa Kairos, and this is my piece. It's titled Ascent. It's first let me say I live in San Francisco and I'm a studio holder at Sanchez. So this is a large work on paper. I think knowing the scale is kind of important. It's over 3 feet tall and it's about 6 feet across. So seeing it on the screen here makes it a little difficult to see all of the detail. It has a lot of small detail in it, but it is acrylic washes and carbon on watercolor paper. And then the watercolor paper is hand cut with those little, the grid that you see, that's actually cut out in a matrix. So this is an abstract landscape. All my work is focused on places where natural and man-made landscapes meet or interact in some way. I focus on kind of in-between places and places that are unassuming, places that we typically wouldn't think of as like worthy of being painted. Sometimes like roadside locations or just out of the way places, industrial areas, things like that. And this piece was done at residency up at Wildlands in Northern California this past year. And my focus here, the title alludes to this. It's about the experience of being in a field, which is a cultivated field. It's been mown and shaped, and most of the trees have been taken out, and also being surrounded by natural landscape and the relationship between that field and the sky. So to create the piece, I use a layered wet into wet technique. So I actually use water to completely soak the paper, and then I work with inks into the wet paper. And I layer those. There's probably maybe 6 to 8 layers of ink on these. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I think I asked you last week when you were talking about your work if you just install them directly on the wall. So this really pretty monumental piece is just held directly on the wall, right?
Yes, it would be installed with magnets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would float off the wall about a ½ inch. And then it creates a little bit of light play with the cutouts, and the paper from being soaked over and over again becomes slightly wavy. So it has some dimensionality to it.
Yeah, it's too bad that we can't see that objectness and the way that it must interact with the space around it. This is a really compelling work, and I knew that I was missing a lot, not being able to see it. It's really lovely.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Casey, and I'm based in here, San Francisco, and I'm also a studio artist in Ruth Division Gallery in San Francisco too. Here, these 2 photo sculpture 21 grade series are the work included in the show, and it's about 36-inch wide, 25-inch tall, and made with fabric and resin. And I consider myself a digital photographer, and with my practice, I'm very interested in bringing a new perspective to classic portrait photography and ways to break the 2-dimension limitation in this field. Also conceptually, being an immigrant, part of disappearing middle class, a woman, an artist, a female artist, I often find myself stuck in the network of this society. And this topic has always been my interest. So for the past few years, I have been trying to find the material that can resonate with the idea of social fabric. I can also print on, paint on, with a lot of different options of different texture and the flexibility to make photo sculpture and both photograph print. And that's how I started to focus on the printable fabric. And this is the main material you see in these two sculptures. And back to this work, the series is called 21 Grains. And 21 grains is usually as a metaphor for the weight of soul. And these are two self-portraits from my passport ID. I printed onto 2 pieces of fabric and coated with resin to make these 2 work. And these 2 work are like 2 snapshots for continuous motion, responding to my immigration experience after I moved from Taiwan to United States. And then when I was making this work, I was exploring and thinking what I was losing while trying to adapt myself to this new environment. Apparently, I didn't lose my leg, my hand, or anything physical to fit in. So it must be something invisible. So it probably is my soul. And I also want you to notice the losing soul on the ground and the color of the tears. And I still remember how struggled I was at the first year when I first moved here. But at the same time, I can also sense the more I get used to this new environment, I feel more and more unfamiliar with my hometown, my roots, Taiwan. And these 2 sculptures are responding to the change. And with this work, I'm asking myself, what have I been changing while trying to fit into the new identity? And what people have to struggle with or sacrifice to pursue a so-called better life in another country? And what does that mean, having a better life? So I hope my work can resonate with people living in the modern world with your own personal story. And thank you so much for being here and everyone who involved to put the show together. That's it.
Well, thank you. I was just really struck by the just the quality, the sculptural quality of these, and that they're self-portraits, and yeah, they're playful and but deep and complicated.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Larry Hughes. I live in Pasadena. I got my music degree at Cal State Northridge, but while I was there, I took a lot of drawing classes with Hans Burkhardt. One day, I went to my music lesson, and my teacher, I guess I had a kind of a bad lesson, and my teacher, Roy D'Antonio, he said, Larry, it's 5 or 10% talent, and the rest is just hard work. So I thought, well, okay, I need to work harder. And then one day between classes, I was sitting on a bench, and Hans Burkhardt was walking toward me, and I said hello to him, and he sat down with me. And he was looking at the buildings and the sky and the trees, and he said, you know, I haven't painted my masterpiece yet, but it's 5 or 10% talent, and the rest is hard work, so I'll keep trying. And that blew me away, because here my teacher, my music teacher, said the same exact thing about a week before. And here a great artist, well, they're both great artists, said the same thing, and that has stuck with me ever since. Anyway, I like doing woodblock prints because I like working with the limitations of the wood. And as you can see in this picture, the wood was very grainy, and I thought it would lend itself to depicting smoke. So that's what I did. Now, I'm not a smoker, but I do love to have 2 or 3 cigars a year, and that's what this is about. Thank you.
I just like that this was a wood block and that print and self-portrait and the smoke, and I thought it was really charming, and thank you for submitting it.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jordan Holmes. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, but I currently live in San Francisco. My work in the show is this large acrylic painting titled A Few Good Dowels. It's 60 by 48 inches. It was originally part of a larger body of work made for my MFA thesis, and this work kind of examines how space is materialized, how it's organized, and how it's made to mean. So I think a lot about the distinctions between space and place in my work and how to unsettle the presumed divisions between public and private space. For the body of work that this painting is a part of, I collected imagery relating to the built environment, both like domestic and civic spaces, urban architecture, and other sort of spatially coded imagery that I encountered kind of in my day-to-day movements as well as on the internet. And I consolidated the formal elements of that imagery into these abstract compositions that signal something about how space produces meaning. Fluorescent colors are prominent in a lot of my work, and I'm interested in them predominantly because they're like these highly instructional colors and highly authoritative colors, especially when we encounter them out in the built environment. And stripes, as you'll notice, and grids as well are also an important part of my vernacular, because not unlike fluorescent colors, I think they often are used architecturally as a means of policing how bodies are regulated in space. So for me, I think both of these material elements provide a lot of visual and aesthetic and political richness in my work. And that's it, thanks.
I guess when I was looking at your work, the pieces that you submitted, I saw in them a sense of humor that maybe I'm projecting onto it, but the palette is so loud and boisterous, but the forms that they meet up with one another seems to not be so, like I don't think of them as authoritative forms, or they're not bossy paintings, but there's something about them. You're making use of these really highly saturated colors that that might be really awful to encounter out in the world, but then you put them together in a way that it seemed funny to me. I liked it.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. I think the kind of the interplay between humor and authority, or maybe undermining that authority, is important. And so thanks for touching on that, Carin. I appreciate it.
Hello all. Despite the fact that this looks like a concrete crypt, it was not photographed or submitted during the time of our coronavirus. My name is Alan Grinberg. I grew up in New York and Washington, D.C., stopped in St. Louis on my way west to get an architecture degree, and came to San Francisco to build a textile printing studio to print my fabrics, which is still a business I'm involved in. I've done photography since I've been a little kid, and over the years I've finally learned that what I'm really interested in is kind of documenting how things change over a period of time. This photograph is taken from an old Nike site, which is on Sweeney Ridge, near where I live in Pacifica. And I'd been going up there fairly often, taking pictures of buildings that had been falling down and were covered with graffiti. And maybe 6 months ago, I went up there and the buildings were all gone. And what you see here is what was left. So it was sort of a sad time, but it ended up becoming sort of the period on a series that I'd been doing about this particular place. One thing I'd like to say, this is out of the series, and I found it to be a real treat to visit each of these artist websites and look at the other work they do, because looking at a single piece of work is kind of like tearing a page out of a big book, and everybody here does have many more extensive photos of their work, and I found that to be very enriching. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. This is Carin. It was That's one thing that was really hard about during the show is picking singular works out of a series. I made a couple of exceptions, but mostly I made a decision to include one thing from an artist rather than multiples, but I absolutely recognize that as a loss. I know this is a part of a larger body of work, and like the other artists who submitted multiple pieces, like I felt sadness and regret about not being able to put more of one artist's work in. And I too have really enjoyed going through and looking at everybody's website. So thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Gill. This piece is out of a body of work where I was exploring the juxtaposition of printmaking and these Islamic geometric print designs with images and kind of veiling or hiding the image within the pattern. The patterns were they were a new exploration for me. They started out you started out using commercial ones, but then I made my own dry point etchings, so it's the dry point print, and then I painted on top of that. And the idea being to let the pattern kind of dictate where the color goes. So there is an image there, but it's hidden, it's kind of veiled. That's the idea that I've been exploring.
I love the way that that the image was kind of obscured and then also brought forward through the pattern of this work.
Mm-hmm.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tom Gehrig. I work out of San Anselmo, California. The title of this piece is Reconnoitering Site 1. It's oil on canvas with mixed media. It measures 44 by 44. My work is influenced actually by the tonalist school of California landscape painting, people like William Keith and Thomas Hill. Interestingly, that was the genesis of my work, but while at Mills College in Oakland, I was in an intermedia program where I was working with the music department, doing performance installation work in the 1970s. That work is actually influenced these paintings that I continue to do today. I'm not interested so much in creating paintings for themselves, that is, as such. I'm juxtaposing multiple things at the same time. Usually they're augmented with objects or bits of information that surround the outside of the canvas. So they begin as no particular place. And then I populate that place as if it were a stage. So they're very theatrical, but mysterious, even to myself. That's part of the joy for me, is not knowing exactly what's going to happen on that canvas from day to day, and just allowing my intuition to take me where it's going to go. But ultimately, the background, which if you look up at the top, that's a reel pulley with reel string, and it's tied down here in the lower right with a tie-off that is actual. This is not unusual in the work that I do. I love the idea of simultaneously trying to combine a painted theatrical experience with another whole reality that surrounds it. They're sort of subtly surreal, but they're not hallucinatory in any way or phantasmagorical. You get the feeling that there's something odd going on, but that they actually could happen. And that to me is the magic of the ordinary.
Someone is asking if the branch is painted or an actual.
Yes, it is. That's a painted branch with string that is painted until it leaves the canvas and then it enters the new reality.
Well, I loved the kind of suggested action of this painting, and well, it's in a lot of ways it's a sculpture, it's a painting. I loved that. Not quite being able to figure out what was object, what was painted, what was the action that had taken place. I liked being able to enter into the kind of the narrative part of this painting, which is much more than the landscape.
Yes, and that's the intention. It actually creates a big circle from the little Coleman lantern in the lower right. The string is literally tying it all together. I use it metaphorically. It's connected to the rock, and then the rock is connected to the branch, which is connected to the pulley, and the plane is overlooking the whole thing.
Hi, I'm Gina Geyser. I live and work in Oakland, California. My work is about everyday life and how we navigate through our environment and connect with others. I'm interested in cycles and daily events that we perform over and over again. I generally take photographs or video to record an event or a journey, and the photographs become a document and elevate a specific moment in time that might be a familiar place, but is unique and something we might not otherwise notice or remember. So this photograph was taken from a plane over New Boston, Michigan last winter. It had just snowed the day before, and as we made our descent into the Detroit airport, I took a series of photographs of the landscape below and then later cropped them and applied filters to decrease the color and bump up the contrast. And I was really happy with the series because it was kind of reminiscent of my older work in etchings and charcoal pencil drawings, but it is a photograph.
When we spoke last week about your work, you said that you didn't think that I would choose this because it's not a left coast topic, but but it transports you in a way that that I love. I don't know when we're all going to be back in an airplane again to see the Earth from the sky like that. But it's a photograph, but it feels very much like a or some other alternate reality, and I like that about it.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michelle Foyer. I'm a painter based in San Francisco. This work is part of something that I started about a year and a half ago. It's a parallel body of work that I call sculptural painting or flex flux. And it explores the qualities of relation, resonance, and rhyme experienced in color and shape. The works float 2 inches off the wall, and they reside between painting and object. The reverse side is painted a fluorescent magenta color. You can see it on the left there mostly. And it casts a glow of the colored light on the wall, and it shifts if the light if the prevailing light is darker, then actually the fluorescent gets darker itself. The reflected light becomes the immaterial ground or background of the entire piece. And the movable flap that you see on the left opens to reveal or and then obscure a hidden color. And in this case, it's a vermilion color. And the opening encourages multiple readings or color relations. And I make these works by folding, cutting, taping, and repeating these in variations of no set sequence. Both the color and the shape of the Fabriano paper co-emerge in the making. Neither forms a stable pre-existing ground. A melding of the senses arises where touch and sound or smell suggests color. In turn, the sensory swirl of the mingled color mixes into shape. The piece here is titled Flex Flux Beside Herself. So I see it as something that if someone is beside yourself, you're outside of yourself, but you're still yourself. So it's these two things at once, not contained within one thing. And it's 16 by 21.5 inches by 2 inches closed, and it opens up another extra 3 inches. Thank you.
I liked the way that I imagined this very small sculpture / painting must occupy a much larger space than it really takes up, because of the way that that you use color and the intersection of color and light to take over the environment where the piece is. I didn't get to see that in person, but I imagine that's really like a beautiful part of your work, and one that changes depending on the time of day or the lighting in the space.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Peggy Curtis here. I'm a photographer based in Seattle. I am inspired by the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, which holds that there is aesthetic value in all states of being, including decay. I search for subjects in wrecking yards, gardens gone to seed, beaches, and that's where I find my dying flowers and broken paint. Most of my work is close-up abstracts. The name of this piece is Ups and Downs. It's a photograph of lichen on the side of a large rock in a cemetery. When I first brought it into Photoshop, it was a vertical image. I turned it on its side and spent some time simplifying it to get down to the bare bones, and converted it to black and white. And there you have it.
Well, it's very mysterious. I mean, it's something that it's hard to know if it was an image that was created with a camera or microscope almost, and I liked that about it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Glenn Carter, and this is Aspects of Negative Space. It's an all found object piece. It's 36 by 36 by 2 inches. And it would suggest a falling away of the commonalities of reality, a falling away of our prevalent perceptions of time, perceptions of space, perceptions of being, and a awareness of the frailties of our existence. It has environmental overtones. It also is somewhat tongue-in-cheek. As in most of my works, I pursue a visual seduction for the spectator through unfamiliar beauty, and then I try to provoke a questioning of one's perception of the assembled parts presented. The sum of those questions, those parts, and that unique narrative created by the viewer completes the work which I originally initiated in the studio, and essentially a new work is created. This piece, Aspects of Negative Space, would ask, depending on the viewer, is this a visual aspect, conceptual aspect, an emotional aspect, or a philosophical aspect? Through what perceptions shall we view this experience, this reality, this deeper mystery? Thank you.
I think I was struck by what I perceived as humor or maybe even dark humor in this work. It's really hard to know from the photograph what the lacquered plate below is. you know, there's detail in your description of it. And this was one that I think I chose because I wanted to see it in person and figure it out and didn't think that I would be able to necessarily without talking to you or seeing it in person, and kind of accepted not knowing quite what was going on. And I liked that about it.
Yeah, thanks. That's pretty typical of all my work. The photographs really only give you a sense of the work, and the work in person is much more visceral. And in this particular piece, the plate that's located on the painting has an ocular quality, almost like you're looking through time and space at another event.
Mm-hmm.
And the lacquered plate below is actually what look like goldfish kind of, or koi circling a pond, are just these odd luminous marks that the maker created on this plate. I believe the plate's bamboo or wood, and then it's heavily lacquered and polished.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jamie Berzinski. This painting is from a series of works that I started really back in about 1978. I was, as a young art student, I was trying to reconcile two different impulses: the desire to draw and paint realistically, and also to be non-objective. And so one day I was walking to Humboldt State and for a printmaking class, and it had rained, and looking down on the ground, I saw little pebbles sitting on kind of silt that where the water had drained off. The rain had washed these little pebbles very clear. And I thought, oh, that's the perfect subject matter to kind of explore this idea. And that sent me on a long journey since then that has led me in a lot of different subject matters. And then ultimately, after I retired from teaching, I moved to Pacifica, built a studio out back, and I thought, now what am I going to paint now? And I thought, you know, when I did those rocks and sand so long ago, they were all prints, etchings, and lithographs. What would it be like to paint those? And so I've been painting them ever since. This is, I guess, oh, the other thing about these paintings is as I paint them, I turn them with different edges up. So there's really no up in these paintings. You know, if you have this painting and you want to hang it sideways from how it looks here or upside down, that's fine with me. And the square ones, you can even hang on the bias with a kind of a diamond shape. So they're like, this painting is really 8 paintings for the price of 1.
Well, I liked the way I felt like I was seeing an act of like recording a daily observation, or you know, they're obviously like very realistically rendered, but that doesn't seem to be the point of them. It seems like you're capturing a moment that in your life, and I liked that. They have almost a diaristic or sort of more abstract self-portrait sort of feeling to them, but.
Interesting. Yeah, I always worked from my memory and imagination. I studied with Bob Bechtel at CCAC back in the late 70s. He taught me about realism, how it extends consistently over the surface. So, you know, that's kind of like where I take these.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I love the way you can see the sky.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Bulger, and I live in Oakland, California. My current work is about connection, memory, and processing loss in order to heal. Specifically the loss of my mother, who was murdered 20 years ago. This is my most personal work to date. This piece is called Mom's Afghan, A Piece of Her, which is 30 by 22. And this granny square is from a blanket that she crocheted in the early 80s. And I enhanced the color in Photoshop to make it look a little bit more contemporary. I like to play with scale and make objects bigger than life size, and I like to get a different perspective and focus on the details that otherwise would go unnoticed. For instance, the detail of fibers and the twists of yarn, which this process becomes my form of meditation. I drew this in colored pencil. This is my first colored pencil drawing ever. I normally just work in graphite. The blanket itself has 20 different color squares throughout, so I'm set up for years drawing crochet squares. Being a new mom, drawing crochet has made me think a lot about motherhood and roles that women play, how women mostly make these objects that we love and that we hold, that we use to keep us warm. Drawing crochet has made me think about the yarn itself and where it comes from, the connection and the remembrance through household objects such as this Afghan continues to give me inspiration. And I'm working on more crochet drawings for an art show in September at the Oxtel Gallery in Berkeley, manipulating the colors more and playing around with pattern while still experiencing a strong connection to the past. That's it.
Yeah, I was really, so I know and like quite a bit your graphite drawings, and at first didn't realize this is your work. But I was struck by the title, and I've spent the last few years reviewing the household textile collection at the Oakland Museum. You know, every curator takes on just a collections job every few years, where we dedicate some time to review something that no one has paid attention to for decades. And I just happened to get the assignment, even though I'm an art curator, to review everything that we hold that falls into that category of domestic textiles. And there's so much, so many things have been made by women that that go unnoticed. And I was just struck by the title of this piece and the careful rendering of the granny square, and what seemed to be so personal but also really universal about it. I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I'm Jay Bergman. I live and work in Redwood City, California. The picture is called Poppy Pods, and it's a 9-inch by 12-inch archival inkjet print matted in a 16 by 20-inch frame. My inspiration, quite simply, is seeing. I look for the extraordinary embedded within ordinary images. I've got a fascination with the interplay between order and chaos, which does a lot to inform my work. My process involves shooting, visualizing what the image is going to be even before I shoot it. And then I render it in Lightroom using both tone functions and undocumented nonlinearities to make the image appear more like a silver gelatin photograph. I go for the depth and luminosity of the film images, even though it's digital. That's a summary.
Well, yeah, I think it's beautiful, and I was just struck by the way poppy pods really stand out, and then also disappear into the land around them.
Hi everyone, this is Nancy. I am in California in the Bay Area near San Francisco. And this particular painting is actually very small. It's, as you can see, 10 inches by 18 inches. And it is part of a series from basically me wandering around on Google Earth for hours at times and looking for images that catch my eye because they're unusual or feel kind of random. And I like things that have interesting architecture or people doing things that feel ordinary but then slightly odd in some way. So it's a mixed media piece. I start by first just throwing a lot of paint on the canvas using random pen marks, acrylic, sometimes watercolor, and then build on top of that with oil. And then, yeah, and usually my work there's a lot of times there's a theme of loneliness or just isolation in some way, or watched or being watched kind of feeling. So I think that's all I have to say.
I didn't realize that you were getting this imagery from Google Earth. That's really interesting. I'm sorry if that was in your statement and I missed it. I think I just picked up on the sort of solitude of that figure and wondered what was going on with the umbrella. And I just like the canvas and that the scale was small. And but yeah, knowing that you might have pulled that from Google Earth makes it even more mysterious and strange, and I like that.
Yeah, I think that's what drew me to it was the umbrella too, because there's something about the painting that, or the image that makes me feel like it's saying something about work in general. And just the umbrella being there, you know, meaning that he probably stands there for hours at a time.
Yeah.
What it is. So, yeah.
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Alexandra Ballier and I live and work in Mill Valley, California. And this painting, 1970, lies at the intersection of painting and sculpture, like a lot of my work. I often work with traditionally sculptural materials in a painting way and what might be called painting materials in a sculptural way. And this is a recent painting that grew out of some explorations I started 5 years ago in grad school. But I sort of picked up this idea of working with dried paint again. In grad school, I was using dried paint and creating sculptures from the different pieces of dried paint. In this work, I lay out acrylic paint combined with polymer emulsion in long strips, and they're dried, and then I cut them and assemble them. And in this particular piece, I was inspired by the shag rugs I grew up with in the 1970s. So I was thinking about sort of a swatch of a rug. So it's fairly small. And so the title comes from the inspiration of the shag rugs of the 70s. And for me, the process is as important as the finished product. So there's something about all the different steps involved and then manually assembling it that's a big part of why I make this kind of work. Thank you.
Yeah, I liked the sort of textile reference, but knowing that these were paintings also.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carin. Thank you everyone at the Sanchez Art Center for organizing this.
Hi, this is Peter Basic. I live and work in Oakland. I'm a printmaker primarily, although I do other things on paper. I like pastels and I occasionally paint, but I've always been involved with etchings for 30 plus years, usually urban landscapes. I sometimes have a departure in my subject matter, but it's usually urban landscapes because I live in the city and I'm surrounded by these buildings all the time and these views. A lot of these views are sometimes overlooked, but what I do is I see something in them, whether it's a nostalgic look or just an analytical depiction of a composition. I can break things down into something that may not be noticeable, but I look at it sometimes as just a simple composition. This particular piece is called Poolside. It's a lithograph, a stone lithograph. The image is 11 by 14 inches. It's of a local pool where I swim pre-lockdown, but it's part of I did a larger pastel, and this is just one section of it, but I enjoy black and white. I just live for drawing either lithographs or in etching. I enjoy the structure and the impression and the imagery in black and white. So this was just a view of a pool that I've always visited, and there are no people in a lot of my landscapes, something that doesn't bother me because as one reviewer once said, it appears as if the people just left the scene and they'll be back momentarily. And I love lithographs because I love drawing, and this enables me to just work in this slow, deliberative process in capturing an essence of everyday views, which most people don't really see. And that's my role, I feel, is to capture these images so that I can make some sort of statement with what I see in my own mind's eye. And that's about it. Thank you.
Well, it's really, it's quiet and beautiful and contemplative, and I also imagine that there's a story there that's about to happen or just took place, and I love that about it.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My name's Tamara Avery and I live in San Francisco. And I'm actually, I paint large scale narrative paintings, but before I do a large scale painting, I will typically do a portrait. And this is a portrait that I did called Rat Tails. And so my process begins actually with collage. I use photographs that I take and also photographs that I find on the internet. And through collage, deconstruct stories and then create new stories. And then I paint from the collages that I make. Right now, this painting is from a series that I'm doing called Off the Rails. And I've been working on that series for actually a couple of years now. And it was originally inspired by a carnival, images from a carnival that I saw from Belgium, where the people there were celebrating the end of winter, and they used household products to create costumes, and then they celebrated in the street. And so I started making costumes myself. And so this is a costume that I made and then photographed. It's actually my daughter is wearing this costume. And so then I work from the photograph to the collage. And so that's my process.
She gets a Jurors Award.
To me, it felt like it was based on a photograph, and then the fact that the costume or the clothing is so outrageous or just strange. I really loved that about it. Not being able to figure out what was going on. Why is that person wearing dish gloves and a marabou feather stole fur thing, and why is there a rat puppet on their head? It just but it's not silly. It feels like it's a documentation of a performance or something that I can't completely understand.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pilar Agüero Esparza. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but I currently live and work in San Jose, California. My work in the exhibition, titled Stratum 5 from 2019, is an acrylic on wood panel painting and is from a body of work in which I engage in the language of abstraction and use the skin tone palette as an alternative approach to color theory. The lines, shapes, and compositions are informed by the woven patterns found in textiles and leather craft. While the color palette is contrived as, quote, neutral, I see hierarchical power dynamics represented in the non-chromatic colors of beige, brown, and black. I want the viewer to see these works as racialized abstractions and consider social dynamics and hierarchies within our culture. I considered this term after reading it in the curator Adrian Edwards' essay and subsequent exhibition titled Blackness in Abstraction. The notion that a specific color could inject an entire new meaning and a visceral expression to non-objective painting very much intrigued me. In creating the series, I considered the definition of stratum, which is, according to Webster's College Dictionary, means any of the socioeconomic groups of a society as determined by birth, income, education, etc. Which had me pondering that despite that our social structure relegates us to certain realms of privilege, our current reality demonstrates that we are extraordinarily more interwoven, interconnected, and interdependent of one another. Thank you.
Well, I was really struck by all your work, wanted to include more than one piece, and it's just, it's complicated. and I'm finding myself speechless, sorry. It's funny, it's so strange to be able to talk to all of you and not see any of you. But
I agree.
Yeah.
No, but thank you so much, Carin, for including my work in the show. It's very interesting to be with such a variety of ranges of approaches and subject matter, etc. So appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, your work is challenging, and I think it's really important, and I was really pleased to see it when I was going through all the submissions. And I would just say that all of you submitted work that challenged me in one way or another, or delightful simultaneously. So if there's anything that all of you have in common, I think it would be that. Cindy was going to go back for me, right? So I could say a little something who I missed.
Yes, and first I'd like to find out if Stanislav is now able to use his microphone. I've unmuted him. Doesn't seem that way. So here we'll circle back to the beginning for the few pieces, Carin, for your comments.
I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Could you unmute the artist if he's still with us?
Yeah, so this is Martin Webb.
Martin Webb. I chose this painting because it just seemed like a quiet moment in a place that I would want to be. And I appreciated the way that you were using this kind of almost graphic quality on such a large scale in a painting that also felt really organic, like I could enter into it.
Thank you. That's kind of what I was going for, a sort of immersive mood.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
We have Paula.
And you know, again, I keep saying it over and over again, I wish that I could see this in person, because I got a sense of how much layering and work went into this piece that that really does feel like it has a lot of psychological tension. And I appreciated the way that I could see your hand in it.
Nina Temple.
And you know, this piece just looks like it's breathing to me, and I really, you know, like that about it, that it's it feels like a living organism.
Let's see, Myrna wasn't able to join us. Do you want to share a little bit?
Well, you know, this work has some relationship with some of the other pieces that are really constructions or sculptures that I think this piece is also mounted on the wall, but and made with found objects. And yeah, it has the tactile quality and a strangeness that I appreciated. And I feel regret about not being able to include more than one piece from this series. But and so I struggled, and it took me a while. And ultimately I chose this piece because it felt like it was the culmination of a really long journey at a hopeful moment. And I thought if I had to extract a single work from a body that really belonged all together, that would be the most appropriate one to choose.
I think we're almost at the...
And I think I talked about this one, but I like a lot that this is like a whole construction, like a fantasy construction, something that didn't belong in the past, but looks like it did.
We'll give one more, see if he's able to speak yet. He's unmuted. I know he's been on the call.
Well, I'm sorry that we weren't able to hear from you, but I liked your work and was happy to see it included, and nothing else like it in the show.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us today and spending the afternoon with us, seeing this great work in a different way than we had anticipated presenting to you. And thank you, Carin, for spending all of the time with us again and commenting on all of the works, which really added to this whole unique experience that we're doing right now. I hope everybody will continue to enjoy the virtual gallery. It will stay up for several more weeks. And as a few people mentioned, you can also explore the websites of the artists for pieces that really stand out for you. So continue to enjoy it. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. We look forward here at Sanchez Art Center to hopefully seeing you all in person before too long. And in the meantime, just thank you all, and stay safe and well, and take good care and keep being creative. Carin, do you want to say any last things?
Well, just thank you so much, all of you, for taking the time to be together today and talk about your work. And thank you to the Sanchez Art Center. What you do is so important. It's just so amazing that you do. So everybody stay well.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Wow.